Hello and welcome to another episode. It's your boy Dre, and today we're going to be talking about reparations. Um, Recently, with what's going on in California, it's kind of been stirred up nationally again. And for those who don't know, California has been advancing the bill to actually compensate their residents for discriminatory laws and practices that were perpetrated against Black residents in that state. And one of the things that I think kind of often happens in context of reparations, um, I guess probably I should start from square one. For anybody who comes across this and doesn't, uh, reparations is essentially reparative justice. It is essentially when a group of people have been wronged by a particular entity, such as, in this case, the state. And I mean the state as in the country of the United States, not the state as in a state, but that can also be the case as well. Um, and an action is taken in order to repair that harm and make it right. Um, that's really all reparations is. It is righting a wrong. And the case for reparations, a lot of times, I feel, ironically, very few Black people are involved in actively shaping the discussion for reparations. Every now and then, somebody will come out, say something, but for the most part, when it comes to reparations, it's a lot of folks who don't look like us who are talking about the subject, what it should look like, so on and so forth. And that was the point of the clips that I put in the description. Um, so the first clip is from Breaking Points, their news channel here on YouTube, and in it, a host of Indian descent, Sagar and Jetty, and I think I'm probably going to butcher this. I don't. She's white. Emily Jahinsky, I believe is her name. They give their take on it, and they kind of laughingly at one point say like, "Yeah, what we actually need here is," because Sagar's like, "I really like to get Crystal's take on it," which is the other normal host that co-hosts with him, and he's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what we need. We need more white people, uh, more white people's take an opinion on this." And he makes the case that reparations is an issue that is basically the business of all peoples of the nation, since it would involve taxpayer money. Um, well, actually, in that case, since it was California, all peoples of the state, but he's talking about the larger debate of in the country as well. Um, so both to be interchangeable there. And then the second clip, and shout out to Uncle Phil for this one. On his African Diaspora News channel, Phil Scott covers a lot of stories that are very interesting that will never see the light of day in mainstream media. And when it comes down to it, I can say this: he comes across. I've never felt like Phil was trying to pull the bull over on somebody's eyes or anything coming out of Phil's mouth. I feel like he's staying 10 toes down on it. He believe that to the fullest. And I, for one, personally appreciate that type of authenticity and figure in a person's analysis and rank. But all that being said, he shows a clip of Jimmy Dore. And the part I kind of want to focus on comes in probably like the first 6, 7 minutes or so. where he's talking and the clip of Jimmy starts rolling. He's like, yo, black people don't need cash payments. They need a living wage. They need healthcare. They need this. They need that. Instead of all these other things that are divisive. And two things can be true, which is my opinion and my stance on it. Like, two things can be true at the same time. Like, do black folks need those things? Technically, yeah. I also need my 40 acres, and I need my mule on 22s, baby. And just to kind of walk through this thing from beginning to end, because I already know what some of the critics would probably be saying. Like, why should you get reparations? When has this ever happened? We don't see other people rallying and doing X, Y, Z to get reparations. And to that, you're wrong. You're wrong, and you don't even know how wrong you are. There have been several notable cases where the United States government has given reparations to different people groups for different things. When it comes down to it, I think probably the one that immediately comes to mind is there. A lot of folks may not be aware of this, but a lot of the Native American Indians did get reparations from the federal government. A lot of peoples have gotten their reparations from the federal government. Jewish Americans received reparations from the federal government as well for the Holocaust. So money was given to the Holocaust survivors. And that one I won't speak too deeply on because I personally am not that familiar with it. I do know that it occurred. I can speculate on the motivation as to why, because the United States was not directly involved with the Holocaust. However, if I had to speculate, I do know of some instances where there were ships of Jewish immigrants seeking refuge that were turned away. And then, later it became public knowledge of the Holocaust and what was happening to folks. So I think that may be the rationale there, but that's something that I admittedly would have to look a bit deeper into. And dang, speed trap. Okay. Whew. But yeah, and then probably the one that there's one that I'm forgetting. Kind of, it's really similar to what happened to us. Like it was these people. They were rounded up. They were put into these camps. It's about 3-4 years that they were unable to work, do anything freely at all. They were not able to leave that camp. Oh, the Japanese. Yeah. And they received reparations in the 80s under the Reagan administration, if I'm not mistaken. It was the 80s. It would have either been Reagan or Bush. But they actually campaigned and they put a lot of pressure on the government to right that wrong and redress that grievance. And when it comes down to reparations, the part of it I feel that we often get suckered into is, one, we include too many people in the conversation who don't have any business being in the conversation. And what I mean by that is this: reparations is a family business issue. that is between the United States government and Black people. The sentiments and whatnot of other individuals shouldn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's politically popular or not. This is a grievance that needs to be righted amongst its people and its citizens. Certain things are not subject to the, how is it phrased? Certain things are not subject to the tyranny of the majority. And such a matter as reparations is definitely one of those. Because I'm pretty sure with all those other people groups, it would be pretty much the same case, the same dynamics at play. Because everybody's always going to be out for self. Everybody's always going to want their slice of the pie. And the one thing I kind of take offense to, in particular with the breaking point segment, is it was like, yeah, they don't need reparations, but there's a lot of things that need to be done. And basically, we should do these things for all people of lower socioeconomic class, and that would disproportionately affect Black and brown people and poor whites. And it'll be something that's politically expedient that everybody can get behind, and yada yada yada, and talking about it from a coalition building standpoint. And I don't feel that that's wrong in terms of strategy if you were to go that route, but I do feel it's wrong in terms of the discussion dynamic. It should not be that type of discussion. Just point blank period. You're not in the house, you're not affected by it. And this is one where Black folks should be speaking directly to those who are in control of the levels of power. And this is where, once again, going back to Uncle Phil, flipping back to there, this is where we got to make this, foreground this, and make this an important issue. And really pound the pavement and make the movement. Because the reality of it is this, like, if we don't place the importance on it, if we don't force the issue, nobody else is going to. And there have been several notable Black politicians who have come out and basically said, like, yeah, reparations is a pipe dream. You'll never get it. You'll never do this, that, and the third. And one of them being, I believe it's James Clyburn, recently came out and said something along that. Sometime today. Sorry. But he recently said something along those lines. And matter of fact, he's in Omega Psi Phi fraternity, if I'm not mistaken. So y'all brothers need to go talk to y'all brothers. Y'all brothers need to go talk to y'all brothers. But yeah, that digression aside, it's one of those things where we're working. One, they're trying to, the way the discussion gets framed is one in which it tries to make us work against public sentiment and to make it something that would be essentially weighed in on by the direct public, when in actuality that isn't the type of matter that should be weighed in by the direct public and those who are unaffected. Because at the end of the day, each and every person who's been affected by a particular societal ill is able to lobby and have that conversation with the government to get their justice, their restorative justice. That being said, reparations to me should be an open and shut issue. And part of the way I feel that we should come at it is simply this. Especially when you're talking about reparations for Black Americans, I don't give a damn what nobody says. It is absolutely the right thing to do. It is absolutely, without question, something that should be done and done immediately. And the reason I say that is, a lot of people may not know this, but reparations for slavery has already been actually dispersed by the federal government. How do you probably like Drake was fucking talking about? Like my uncle, my grandma, ain't nobody ever got they 40 acres in a mule. Like you bugging, bro. Nah, I'm not. You didn't get it. Your ancestors didn't get it. But if you look at history, you'll find that the former slavers, upon emancipation of the enslaved, were compensated and given reparations. Can't make this shit up. And in context, I feel that the way that the dynamic for how it should be approached is simply through one of a historical lens that notates the wrongs that have been perpetrated against Black Americans. One in which that conversation does not stop at 1865, because there's this notion almost like, yeah, Jim Crow didn't happen. I'm pretty sure I've shared this story or shared this in another video, but in terms of people who have been directly touched by slavery in my life, I have a person. My great grandmother, God rest her soul, she was the daughter of slaves. I want to say her name was Anna, and I want to say great grandma was born in. She was the youngest of her siblings, but she was born in 1896. I want to say. Essentially lived almost 100 years. She outlived all of her children. But yes, her mother and father, slaves. They were enslaved, and they came of age right as slavery was ended. I believe they were teenagers in 1865. And let's see, I think my great great grandfather was a teenager. My great great grandmother was younger, but also enslaved. And then on top of that, and also one of the reasons why I say that it should not be a discussion in which we had this pretense in which it ends at 1865 is simply this: like, when it comes down to it, there were decades of redlining. It was decades of lynching. There was decades of terrorism and abuse. There was decades of discrimination. It was decades of purposeful neglect and deterioration perpetrated against Black communities. The old high school of where I'm at, where I came from, used to be, the old Black high school became the middle school. And that building was largely the same as when my dad, my uncles, my aunts went through it. And granted, me and my dad are probably removed about 50 years in terms of our schooling. But it was 8th grade. It was language arts. And our books were falling apart. And looking at it, I would have said, the book's maybe 15, 20 years old. But I opened the sleeve of the book. And, there's so many spaces on the inside cover for you to write your name for that semester. And then there's a blank page. On that blank page, you just had this long list of names. And then on the other side of that page, it continued. As I just looked through the list of names, I saw folks that I knew, but they weren't from my generation. I saw my father's name in that book. And granted, Hampton County is a poor county. It's not a lot of money in terms of the public school system and resources available. But that's ridiculous. But that just hearing what they went through in segregation from my father in terms of resources, in terms of the staffing and whatnot for schools, it doesn't sound like it was that uncommon at all. It sounded like the norm. And when you compare that to people who've had the luxury for generations, that have had their wealth creation potential unimpeded, like that is a staggering toll. One of the biggest things that we aren't talking about today is the amount of, and this goes back to something one of my friends on YouTube talked about, Mr. Z. He covered another story from Breaking Points talking about the generational wealth transfer that's about to occur. Right now, Black Americans in this country own less than 1% of the wealth. And while millennials as a generation currently don't own a whole lot of wealth, the fact of the matter is there's a lot of boomers who are about to pass away and about subsequently going to be leaving behind assets that are going to be inherited by the younger generations. But that wealth is largely concentrated in the hands of a few. So you're going to have a growing income disparity, which is going to more disproportionately affect Black Americans. So the case for reparations is one in which, frankly, the government has always conspired to create this paradigm in which Black people's progress is impeded, in which the efforts that we put in as a collective are muted. And the old adage was you have to do twice as much to get half as far. And that is largely true. That is true from a policy standpoint. And it's by design. And when you talk about the amount of time that was perpetrated against us, and a lot of these things, even some of these things today are still perpetrated. It's just not as overt. It becomes a no-brainer. And we as a people, this might sound a little bit familiar, but I think we need to use a version of sign language against the Democratic Party in particular, but lawmakers in general in America and Americans. Because I would say the greater body of Americans, because it's one of those things in which, from a narrative perspective, how can you make the issue or make the case that we don't need? That is on its face blatant white supremacy and the perpetuation of it. And it is simply mean-spirited bigotry to deny the descendants of the people what they're rightfully owed. That's why I made the thumbnail what I made it. If you watch the Boondocks, you already know. And you're going to pay what you owe, Santa. You're going to pay. And it's one of those things where we should not let them forget. And the fact of the matter is, while I feel reparations would be a mixed bag in and of itself, because I feel it's a little bit of a catch-22, because there's a lack of infrastructure in terms of institutions, businesses, and whatnot in Black society. I really truly feel that a lot of that wealth would get soaked up and be a boon for the white majority. But the flip side of it is, with that wealth, we'd be able to create a lot of this, a lot of those institutions, businesses, and resources for our societies. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg or egg. And you know, I'm no fool. And the biggest thing that we should also keep foregrounded is even if somehow we force the issue and action, legitimate action is taken in order to give reparations. And I'm gonna say this right here. To me, reparations is not none of this foolishness that some folks have been talking in the past, like free college for black folks or this, that, and the third. Nah, reparations is pay me. Like I said, I want my 40 acres in my mule. Just like the field order that William Tecumseh Sherman issued, which Lincoln then approved and signed over by executive order. I want it. That's what was promised. That was what's promised to my ancestors. So you're going to pay. But I digress. To kind of bring it back. We need that wealth as a collective, as a people. And even if we get that wealth, it does not absolve government of its responsibilities. It's not a case of, okay, well, we cut you a check, so we go defund everything that you own or everything in your community. Okay, we cut you a check, so we don't have to give you health care or anything like that. Nah, that's not the deal. You still have responsibilities to your people and to your citizenry. And if it happens, that's the most important thing, in my opinion, that I feel we need to always keep at the forefront, which is, while it may enable us to build a lot of that social infrastructure, that don't change the fact that you have a responsibility to us as a people. And that's not to say that we should be dependent upon government, but that is to say that government has a right to do right by us. Excuse me, it has a responsibility to do right by us. And righting that wrong is just the start. It is not the end. So that's my 2 cents. Largely, that's how I feel about the whole issue with reparations. I think that we allow too many people to speak on our family business, and really it don't involve them. I don't really care what they have to say or what they think, because we should be going directly to our government officials. We should be pounding the pavement. We should be cultivating that movement and putting legitimate pressure and tightening the screws up on them. And, you know, and I'll say this too. The big thing about it is, when it comes down to it, and this is going to be the play for the next election cycle, they're going to try to remind you of how bad Trump was. I feel that if you really truly take a moment to stop and think about it, they talked about Donald Trump and Republicans like they was the son of Satan. Like it would be hell on earth if this man got in office. And did he do a lot of bad stuff? Yes, he did. But guess what? Whether it's a Democrat, whether it's a Republican, we still gonna be here. And that's always been the case. It is not this existential choice that they want to make it out to be. And a lot of times, because we as a collective buy into that framing, along with that comes the absolving of those responsibilities and those pressures, because it's simply, well, you know, boy could have been in here, you wouldn't have got that. And you know, I disagree with Phil slightly on this point. I don't think it's as simple as Phil says, hey, yo, sit it out. I think it's as simple as this. I would not recommend that you vote for Democrat. If this is important to you and your congressman, your senator, whoever is up for election, if they are not open or at the very least And I'm setting a very low bar here. It's like if they aren't receptive to the possibility of reparations or casting their vote and putting their political power behind it, then it's like, all right, cool. I'm gonna vote for the other side. I'm gonna vote third party. And I can guarantee you this: as a collective, if we say, hey, this issue is one of our most important, and this issue is one that can make a lot of the other issues that we're facing a whole hell of a lot better. And if we decided to get behind a third party, would they win in a presidential election? Nah, I ain't about to sell that dream, but I can tell you this. If you were to be on election night and you see that the Republican candidate got 30% of the vote, the Democratic candidate got 30% of the vote, let's see, probably like more like 35, and then you saw some third party sitting up there and they had a quarter of the vote or something like that. If you don't think that would get both parties' attention, like, you're a fool. And the only I put out this, one of the reasons why I say personally I feel it's better to vote third party than to not vote or just vote down ballot is, one, to me, sitting it out is kind of playing a neutral game. It is playing a neutral game. Like, I will go in I've never not voted, but I have written in folks when there hasn't been a third party candidate, or this has been somebody I feel for the office. Because at the end of the day, you could argue it's probably the same. It definitely is the same thing if they are on the ballot at least. But I don't want to legitimize that dichotomy in any way. And with the people that I have voted for, I've vetted, I've looked at what their policies were, and their policies were ones that I agree with. And it's not going into the thing and just voting D or voting R or whatever, but it is truly what is this office able to do for us as a community, whether it be at the local level, in terms of what people are wanting to do with schools, zoning, funding, whether it be at the state level, when you're talking about permitting, business creation, even state tax and certain ordinances and how responses are handled to certain crisis events such as COVID, to a national level, to where you can think of everything that involves the federal purse string. If people are not advocating for me, you don't have my vote. Your mentality should be simply this: you gotta come and get it. And if you don't come and get it, I would encourage you to vote third party, because I believe that sends a lot of message than just simply sitting it out. But either way, you shouldn't be giving your vote to people that you don't feel are undeserved. And that's just bottom line, point blank, period. So whether it be third party, whether it be you sit it out, whether it be I'm just gonna go vote for certain offices, the message should be sent loud and clear to know that, hey, yo, I'm not fucking around with you. Point blank. So let me not digress any further. I'll just wrap it up and make it plain. Bottom line, reparations definitely should happen. It was given to several different people in this country, from the Jewish to the Native American Indians to slavers. And there's some other less notable examples as well. It's one of those things, like, as a country, If America is the place that it wants to espouse itself to be on the world stage as this moral beacon of a moral paragon of virtue, character, to pretend to care about human rights, we should make them be human. We should put all the pressure on them and to, at the very least, expose them for the raging hypocrites that they are. To be on the world stage talking about what other countries do, like China and its Uyghur population. And it's not to say that what was happening there is not demonstrably bad. But when you have your own sins in the closet, it don't hit the same. And at the end of the day, I'll be blunt. Like I'm for my people as a black man, and I can also say this: like I love my country too, and I want my country to be a place that finally lives up to its goddamn promises. And if I can tighten the screws in some way, big or small, such as writing my congressman or giving their office a call and put some pressure and fire to their ass. I mean, they already know my name at this point. A couple of them already know. Andre Hayward calling. He got some strong opinions, and he gonna give me a piece of his mind. And it is what it is. But at the very least, although they own some BS, they know my name. So that's my take on the whole thing. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Take a look down in the description as I put a link to a couple of videos, and I know that I know I've read so many articles about it over the past, especially recently with the California debate. I wasn't able to find any of those as you can obviously see I'm driving, but once I get stationary, I'll probably go back and modify the description to include a couple of the articles that illustrates what I was talking about with various people groups, getting reparations, as well as makes the case for why we as Black Americans should get it as well, and just kind of fleshes the issue out a bit more. So thank you so much for giving me your time and riding along with me. Hope you have a great one. Peace.